My parents didn't realize I'd moved to another state, but now my father's calling, demanding I visit, or he'll stop paying for my college. I informed him I graduated a year ago and earned 10 times his income. I'm the family's underappreciated child. My father was entirely obsessed with my brother. He once declared, "Look, it doesn't matter if you got into a prestigious college. You have to go to the local one because we don't want your brother to be jealous." Well, I pretended to be fine. "Look, Dad, it's all good. I'll go to that local college, but with one condition. I want to stay in the good dorm." I lied to him. I pretended to be in the dorm, but attended the prestigious college on a scholarship he didn't even know I'd received. When he finds out, it'll explode. What would you do if people who barely acknowledged your existence for years suddenly wanted you to appear and pretend to be part of the family for a day? A truly complicated situation, right? I mean, it's always going to be like that with family, especially a family like mine. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Jonas, and if you haven't already noticed, my family is utterly dysfunctional. I say this with complete certainty. Is this even a family? What do you call people who gave birth to you but completely forgot about you once they found a better version of you? That still counts as family? I'll get straight to the point. I could have had a happy family if my parents had treated both children equally, but they didn't. My parents have been biased against me, treating me like background noise ever since I can remember. It's all because my brother, Roman, was the healthy child. Roman was one of those healthy, beautiful babies who quickly captured everyone's attention, while I was skinny and ordinary, someone no one particularly wanted to hold. But those things really should not affect parents to the point of differentiating their children, shouldn't they? But it was different with my parents, Patrick and Mary. Within a month of Roman's birth, he became the golden child, the baby who earned praise from everyone. Roman wasn't extraordinary. He was simply the most beautiful, the main character, as people would say. Meanwhile, I was the supporting character, always forgotten in the background. Can you imagine what my childhood was like? My parents ignored me, providing only the bare minimum, while my arrogant brother let all that attention go to his head. Roman grew up as a spoiled brat who cared about no one but himself, and you can imagine what kind of relationship we had. I was shy and introverted while Roman became a bully. Ever imagined being bullied by your younger brother? Well, that was my case. It seemed Roman had a life mission to make my life miserable. Whether it was through outrageous tantrums that made my parents ruin my plans, or directly taking things I enjoyed, now add a pair of biased parents into the equation. You can imagine what my childhood was like. My parents were the primary reason Roman became a spoiled brat. While Roman received new toys, attention, and praise, I received, well, let's just say I never had to worry about being spoiled. My birthdays were mere formalities. My accomplishments rarely mattered, my role within the family akin to a background proposal. I recall a third-grade instance when I earned top marks on my report card. I felt a surge of excitement, believing perhaps this time I'd receive a trophy or something similar. But when I presented the report card to my mother, her response was a simple, "Oh, good." Then, she resumed discussing a charming drawing Roman had created, one we needed to prominently display on the refrigerator. Yes, Roman's crooked depiction of a dog became the focal point, while my top-scoring report card was relegated to a forgotten file drawer. This was my life. I was the forgotten report card, while my brother was lauded for every trivial act. It wasn't just that. Roman dictated our family vacation destinations, our dinners, and even our television selections. Whenever I attempted to suggest an alternative, Roman would interrupt, relentlessly showcasing his perceived superiority. He was the king, and I, merely a servant. Thus, I believe you grasp why I yearned to escape this suffocating environment as quickly as possible. Then came the perfect opportunity. I sought admission to a prestigious college, securing a scholarship to one of the world's finest institutions, a truly esteemed school, one that promised a successful career path for its students. This scholarship was a dream, yet a significant obstacle emerged. The school was situated in a distant state, and as with all things important to me, my parents refused to support this goal. The reason? It was Roman. My parents insisted I attend the local state college, citing it as the better option. Their rationale, Roman, whose academic prowess was less than stellar, might feel inadequate should I pursue opportunities beyond his grasp. But what was preventing Roman from striving for excellence? Could he not have worked as diligently as I had and achieved similar outcomes? Evidently, this logic didn't resonate with my parents. They insisted I attend the local college. It felt absurd. Deep down, I believed they were intentionally hindering my progress, preventing me from exceeding Roman. It was as though they saw potential in me, but actively chose to ignore it, as if supporting my aspirations would undermine Roman's perceived golden status within the family. Why else would they insist on me remaining at the local college, while Roman, with significantly less ambition, received unwavering encouragement? It felt as though my success was not in their roadmap, forbidden from ever exceeding his. Nevertheless, I refused to let this ludicrous situation define me. I had already sacrificed considerably to accommodate the family's biased preferences, but I decided enough was enough. I informed my parents that I would only attend the local college if I could live in the dormitories. My parents readily agreed, delighted that they had seemingly swayed me. However, they had not. I accepted the scholarship and relocated to another state, while my parents remained blissfully unaware of my actual college destination. Best of all, the prestigious university accepted me and offered the finance program I desired, a program that could be completed in a mere 2 years. Conversely, the local college's finance program extended over a more lengthy period. My perfect plan involved graduating earlier than my parents anticipated. It was the best decision I'd ever made. Not only did I escape the suffocating environment my parents had created, but this college was the epitome of success. Shortly after graduation, I landed a 6-figure job, and I've held this position for a year now. Things are truly improving, and I'm on the verge of a promotion. I achieved all of this independently. The scholarship covered 70% of my expenses, while the money my father supposedly sent for local college tuition covered the remaining costs. Now, I live comfortably. My father continues to send money, believing I'm still attending the local college. I haven't told him to stop. I know it's somewhat wrong, but I see it as compensation for the past 3 years. I've had minimal contact with my family, sporadic phone calls to check in, and 1 or 2 visits during holiday seasons to avoid suspicion. Otherwise, they seemed almost entirely uninterested in me. Frankly, why would they care? They had their golden child, the one they were obligated to nurture, and I was out of their lives. It was a win-win for them. Occasionally, it hurt to realize my parents didn't care enough to notice my relocation to another state, but this sadness was offset by the peace of no longer having their toxic presence around me. The truth is, despite everything, I longed for a family, not one like mine, dysfunctional and disjointed, but one that genuinely cared about me. Despite all my friends and luxuries, there felt something missing in my life. This seemed impossible to fix until this morning. My father called to inform me that Roman was getting married and that he wanted me to be there a few days before the wedding to help with the preparations. I was surprised. My father was actually asking me to return home. I'd waited so long for this moment, especially when he mentioned I was part of the family and that he wanted everyone there for Roman's big day. I was excited. My parents had never considered me part of the family. It was always them and Roman. Now, my father especially wanted me present at the wedding. A whirlwind of emotions. This newfound acknowledgement from my parents was astonishing. But then I remembered that these were the same people who ignored me throughout my childhood. Even now, they were oblivious to the fact that their eldest son was living across the country. Did I truly want to return to those people, only to be ignored again, as I had been my entire life? This was the crucial question, and I felt trapped in a dilemma. I wanted to ask you, what would you do if you were in my situation? I missed the idea of a family, and it would be wonderful to feel like they truly cared about me, even if only once. But the thought of going back and having my expectations crushed yet again was daunting. Should I accept the invitation to my brother's wedding just for a sense of family? Or should I maintain my decision to live far away and not allow them to hurt me again? After 2 days of intense reflection, I've come to a conclusion. Ultimately, I decided to prioritize my peace. Even though some of you might disagree with my choice, I declined my father's invitation to Roman's wedding. Honestly, it feels like the best decision I've made. My parents haven't changed and they never will. So let me pick up where I left off in my previous account. After much deliberation, I sent a brief message to my father, simply stating that I couldn't attend without lengthy explanations or apologies. Just the truth, I wouldn't be there. I anticipated some resistance, but I hadn't foreseen the manipulation that would begin so swiftly. Within an hour, my phone was exploding with messages from all directions. First, my mother attempted emotional manipulation. She questioned whether I truly wanted to miss Roman's big day, if I wished to be that absent brother, and how disappointed Roman would be if I weren't there. She continued, emphasizing how much it would mean to Roman to have his older brother present. Seriously, She still tried the "you only have one family" argument. But here's the thing. Roman's big day meant absolutely nothing to me. Roman has never cared about any of my significant days, not a single one. And yes, you only have one family, but only when they act as such. I told my mother exactly that, reiterating my decision not to attend. When the emotional manipulation failed, my father employed his own tactics. Initially, he tried to remain calm, saying things like families should unite on occasions like these. But when he saw that I wasn't budging, he resorted to underhanded tactics. He called me and threatened to stop paying my college tuition if I didn't attend Roman's wedding. He claimed they couldn't allow whispers about a son's absence at such an important event. Essentially, it was all about appearances, as always. It had nothing to do with me or Roman. It was about how my family would be perceived by others. That's when I truly lost my patience. How selfish can someone be to threaten to withhold a child's education solely to ensure attendance at a wedding? It was utterly ridiculous, especially considering that I didn't care about the money they provided. So, I told my father, "Go ahead, stop paying my tuition. I'm not going to the wedding, and nothing you say or threaten will change that." I haven't yet disclosed that I graduated a year ago, and am living in another state with a six-figure salary and a life they could never offer me. I didn't want them to know how well I was doing, at least not yet. I knew that eventually, I'd have to tell them the truth, and I would when I felt it was the right time. But for now, I was savoring my newfound independence. My refusal to attend Roman's wedding, even after my father's threats, only fueled his anger further. He began yelling, accusing me of being ungrateful, of always being difficult, and declared he would remove my name from the local college as a lesson. He presented this as a significant threat, as if being removed from a place I'd never even set foot in would devastate me. He knew the reality was entirely different, to be honest. I couldn't help but laugh. I could have told him I never attended the local university, but the irony was too rich. Now, I was simply waiting for my father to visit the local university, attempting to remove my name, only to discover I'd never been enrolled. I'm eagerly anticipating his reaction when he realizes I don't need his money or support. It's going to be a shock. And it's only a matter of time until the phone rings again, filled with another barrage of insults. I can hardly contain my excitement. For now, I remain steadfast in my decision to skip the wedding and sever ties. I feel like I'm finally starting to truly protect my peace of mind. But as expected, this wasn't the end of the story. The update came. "Hey everyone, it's Jonas again. I know it's only been a day since the last update, but the endless drama of my life has just escalated. As expected, my father didn't take my refusal to attend Roman's wedding very well. And guess what? He actually went to the local university. This is where things get interesting. My father went there to withdraw my name. He was so deluded, thinking that by cutting off my education, I'd be swayed to attend the wedding. But obviously, when he arrived at the university, he was met with the surprise of his life. The local university had no record of my enrollment. Imagine the scene. My father, trying to cancel my non-existent enrollment, while the bewildered university official insisted there was no Jonas on the student roster. It must have been a significant shock. Naturally, he was furious and humiliated, which was evident in his voice when he called me later that day. He demanded answers. He wanted to know where I'd been during the past 3 years, and what on earth I'd been doing with all the money he'd sent for my university education. The situation was so absurd that, honestly, I began to laugh. After a few angry words from my father, and some playful maneuvering on my part, I decided it was time to reveal the truth. I informed him that I had graduated a year ago, thanks to a scholarship, and the money he'd sent had been instrumental in covering other expenses. But the biggest shock came when I revealed I now had a six-figure salary and earned more than him. The disappointment in his voice was palpable when he asked if I was joking, but I knew it wasn't a joke. The realization that I wasn't the dependent student he thought I was, but a successful, independent man, must have been a bitter pill for him to swallow. I was prepared for what followed. As soon as my father processed what I'd said, he erupted into accusations, claiming I was a traitor for keeping them in the dark. He complained about all he'd done for me, and how I'd repaid him with ingratitude. He spoke about the years his mother and he ignored me while lavishing Roman with affection. And as if that weren't enough, he had the audacity to propose the most absurd idea I'd ever heard. He said he would only forgive me if I attended the wedding. Roman's insistence on a pristine family image, a facade of happiness, left me utterly disillusioned. Even after everything, his concern remained solely with the family's public perception, not with me, not with Roman, but with how others viewed us. Why this sudden obsession with the family image? It had never been a concern before. I made it unequivocally clear. I didn't need his forgiveness, and certainly didn't want to be a part of this manufactured family harmony. I stated unequivocally that there was no possibility of attending the wedding of the man who had irrevocably damaged my childhood. Frankly, it felt liberating to finally vocalize this. My furious father, in a desperate attempt, tried to sway me once more. However, I remained steadfast. I told him that I wouldn't attend, regardless of his pleas or actions. My declaration extended further, encompassing my weariness of manipulation and my decision to sever ties permanently. My father was stunned. I had never spoken to him in this manner before, but I could no longer remain silent. I had spent my entire childhood absorbing everything passively, but that was over. I declared that I wanted no contact from any family member. They could enjoy their golden child's wedding without me, while I pursued my own life, far from their influence. He tried to exploit my emotional well-being, arguing that I was his son and had a duty to attend my brother's wedding. I countered that, in reality, he had only one son, as Roman had always been the sole object of their affection. I suggested they could continue on their path, knowing that I was out of the picture entirely. Before he could respond, I ended the call, blocking his number. That was it. I had officially severed all ties with the toxic presence of my family. This profound act was bittersweet. I had never wanted things to escalate to this point, but I felt a certain satisfaction knowing that it was a necessary step. At long last, I could live my life in peace, and hopefully, one day, build my own family. More than a month had passed since my decisive break. I thought I was free from that family drama and manipulation, but apparently, they could not stand to leave things as they were. A few days ago, out of the blue, a call from an unknown number arrived. To my astonishment, it was my mother, sobbing uncontrollably. Given that I had blocked all their numbers, this unexpected call was a shock. I decided not to hang up, anticipating something serious might be amiss. Instead, she began to lament how much she missed me and desperately wanted her son back. She declared that my actions, or my father's, held no relevance. She simply wanted me to rejoin the family. I was confused. Where had this energy been before? When I declared my severance, they didn't seem to mind, but now, suddenly, my mother was attempting a reconciliation. Something seemed suspiciously off. So, I ended the conversation, saying I'd speak with her later. I sensed something was awry, so I sought confirmation from my mother's sister, my aunt. My aunt's revelation was astounding, completely validating my suspicions. Apparently, Roman's wedding had been a disaster. A disastrous situation unfolded, involving my fiancé Roman and his supposed perfect bride. Prior to the wedding, she orchestrated a deceptive scheme, convincing my parents and numerous family members to invest their life savings in a fraudulent investment opportunity. Tragically, she absconded with the money, leaving my family devastated and the wedding plans in ruins. This wasn't the only misfortune. My aunt revealed a more complex picture of my parents' financial predicament. Apparently, my father's business dealings had deteriorated significantly, with a serious conflict involving a business associate and their family. This fallout, culminating in considerable losses, had pushed him into a desperate state. He'd been intensely focused on the wedding, attempting to salvage his family's reputation and perceived values. Regrettably, these efforts proved futile, and the debacle surrounding Roman and his bride only exacerbated the already precarious family situation. Financially, they were on the brink of collapse, and in a desperate attempt to save their business, they had mortgaged their home. This desperate measure now threatened their loss of the home itself. Ultimately, they were forced into a starkly diminished living space, a testament to their precarious financial state. The truth, unfortunately, became painfully clear. My mother's seemingly urgent phone calls were not driven by a longing for my presence or a desire for reconciliation. Instead, they were fueled by desperation, a need for my help. They were grasping at any possibility, hoping to use my perceived success as a safety net. My insight revealed their desperation and their dependence on me as their last resort. I had no intention of participating in this manipulative game. I was determined to sever ties with the dysfunctional dynamics of my family's situation, choosing not to be dragged back into their turmoil. It was evident that my parents, consumed by their tumultuous relationship with Roman and his family, had neglected my needs. Ironically, This neglect now manifested in their blame directed at Roman for the disastrous consequences of the wedding fiasco and the devastating financial losses. However, this realization did bring me a strange satisfaction. They were finally seeing the errors of their ways, albeit in the most distressing circumstances. Unsurprisingly, my resolve remained firm. After my mother's manipulative phone call, I blocked her number, resolving to avoid any further emotional manipulation. This swift action also abruptly put an end to my parents' efforts to contact me. Despite the evidence of their financial crisis and desperation, they remained stubbornly unwilling to accept the reality of their situation. Unexpectedly, my parents appeared at my doorstep. How they managed to find my address is a mystery, perhaps a result of coercing information from old friends. Their visit involved their usual rhetoric, appeals to family values, the concept of filial responsibility, and their dire financial straits. They portrayed themselves as destitute, having depleted all their savings to afford the costly trip to visit me, a testament to their complete disregard for my well-being and a troubling reflection on their past behavior. Understanding their desperation, I firmly refused to offer assistance. The saga wasn't over. A few days later, Roman himself appeared at my door, a visibly distraught figure, pleading for my help and lamenting the absence of a brotherly figure in his life. His words were heartfelt, but this newfound concern from someone who had neglected my well-being lacked sincerity, and I was left unmoved. He was relentless. All I recall is his intimidating presence. I told him so, yet he persisted, pleading that my parents would soon punish him for the havoc he'd wrought. It was futile. Roman met the same fate as my parents. I shut the door in his face, warning him that any further attempts would result in a police call. Since then, I've heard nothing from them, and frankly, I couldn't care less. This toxic family has worn me down. A tinge of sadness lingers, contemplating how things with my family devolved to this point. The void they've left will always be a part of my life. However, I will no longer tolerate their misdeeds, simply because of familial ties.